Chapter 404 of Hunter x Hunter is out, and this was another really good chapter. We got a bit more elaboration seemingly on the third prince's Nen Beast abilities. More political stuff is happening with all these different factions, all being held together strong, but anything can break. We got seemingly our first real death of a prince in a long time, and I'm just gonna say this, we're probably gonna get the Phantom Troupe back soon, so that's something I'm also excited about. And we also have some pages where surprisingly there isn't that much dialogue, if not any at all, so we'll get to that. But before we jump into this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here and keeps me motivated to keep doing more. Also, if you guys want, please check out my manga podcast, Shonen Pulse, over on the Panel Focus YouTube channel, link in the description down below, where me, Papa Trophy, Yatogami, and Nox all end up talking about a bunch of different manga from a multitude of different magazines. We have already broken over 500 subscribers in the last month and a half, so we're very close to 1K. If we can get there by the end of the year, that'd be very much appreciated. It's a lot of fun, and I think you guys would very much enjoy it. But with that out of the way, let's get right into chapter 404 of Hunter x Hunter, titled Speculation. And this starts off more or less from last week, where KURAPIKA is actually brought over to the third Prince Zhanglei's room to discuss everything going on with the change of the coins and their value. And a lot of math and stuff goes on, but based off of it changing both the number as well as the appearance, seemingly between KURAPIKA and Zhanglei, KURAPIKA is basically think of it as more of a coercive type Nen ability, and also potentially showcases that as a way to basically prove loyalty to Zhanglei. Since it's basically money that increases in value every couple of days, that means that they might end up having some sort of additional effects and bonuses the longer it is out in circulation for each coin, and thus potentially adding more of a benefit to whatever and whoever has these coins. And so KURAPIKA essentially ends up coming up with a hypothesis, and also is basically trying to more or less not only come up with stuff going on with the coins and give enough information to Zhanglei to not only build up trust and help secure Wobble's actual, safety, but also leaving out enough information of the idea of it being somewhat of a coercive type Nen ability, that way to kind of withhold some information to keep Zhanglei from having too much power over the relationship in terms of their deal. Now, one thing about the Nen coins that KURAPIKA is surmising is that it will build up Nen over the course of multiple days, and thus the number will change and increase to 10 every 10 days. And so he surmises that by the 6-month period, it'll be like 1060-somethings, 1064ths of its required amount, and thus anybody who has the coin could potentially just bypass all things involving awakening Nen, all the trading, just awaken to Nen fully with little to no effort just by having this coin. And so it'll seemingly build up over time, and thus it'll also end up building more Nen users seemingly based off of that. And so since this Nen ability is seemingly based off of planning stuff for the future and for the long run, it bases a lot on Zhanglei's personality on wanting to essentially plan ahead for when he becomes the next leader king of Kakin. So having this coin be cumulatively enhancing abilities for the long run does seem to be pretty up his personality. But here's the thing, KURAPIKA actually omits the part of it being a coercive type Nen ability. Because in this case, it is not necessary to do this so that it could have a bit of power over it. But also, its effects on people are kind of unknown, so it is not sure if it'll just be like a little, hey, nudge nudge, if you're loyal to Zhanglei, you'll get more or less power, the total will increase. Maybe it'll like slowly coerce people onto Zhanglei's side over time, and it could also be to maybe help see if this person is loyal to Zhanglei, maybe that'll help increase the value, or just a change in the coin in and of itself, because it did change between Zhanglei and KURAPIKA once they exchanged in terms of the face and the back. So it's interesting to see. But KURAPIKA brings up basically what the effects of the very first person who picked it up on the first day. And so he instantly picks it up that it is Kaven Toba, one of the first Prince's personal guard. Because if we all remember, and this is actually something I had to be reminded of a little while ago, is that he was the first one to pick up the very first coin produced by Zhanglei's Nen Beast. And so that is also a value of 10, as another coin is a value of 10. And since there's a coin produced every day, seemingly, one is definitely unaccounted for, as the first day, seemingly there was nothing, and we're already 11 days into the start of the succession contest. And so KURAPIKA is trying to figure out what this ability is and if it'll change based off of someone who is not loyal to Zhang Lei. But this also gives KURAPIKA the out of, withholding information since it's one of Benjamin's men. And so if it's found out that he has his coercive type information about Zhang Lei's Nen ability, the fact that one of Benjamin's guards is right there and seemingly holding onto the coin, KURAPIKA's suspicions will definitely be valid and he won't be penalized by the third prince over this aspect. So it's pretty good moves by KURAPIKA there. This discussion ends up ending off with KURAPIKA holding onto one of the coins from Zhang Lei, and Zhang Lei holding onto one himself, and so they'll discuss how the value changes and all of that. And just like I said, this could be a way for Zhang Lei to potentially see if KURAPIKA is relatively holding on to his promises and stuff like that, and to keep, well, loyalty to Zhang Lei. So that's pretty interesting to think about, and Zhang Lei is also trying to play KURAPIKA as much information out of KURAPIKA as he possibly can. And KURAPIKA states that they're off the way for the second day of the workshop to figure out the other topic that Zhang Lei wants to discuss. And that there can never be too much information. But here's the interesting part. KURAPIKA actually thinks about the delicate balance of all the princes, as well as the fact that Zhang Lei is one of the benefactors of one of the three mafia families. And so, with all that within mind, there's a delicate balance. And so if something happens where there is a conflict between the mafia families, it could potentially lead to the death of a prince, or it could break the stability that has been pretty neatly maintained between all the different families from Saragnik, Lucerus, and Zhang Lei. This is going to be very interesting because with how strong this balance is, all it takes is something minimal to seemingly break it, primarily with the mafia family. And even speculates that if the mafia go to war on this ship, it gives Benjamin the added benefit of this whole inevitable chaos, because he is so close to enacting martial law, as we've seen for the last two chapters, that all it takes is for one little thing. If the mafia actually start to noticeably just go after each other, killing each other, and potentially lead to the death of a prince, it'll leave Benjamin with no other obstacles to enact martial law, and so he'll benefit from it. He'll put all of the princes under house arrest for their safety and supervision, and at the end of the day could potentially end up just, well, succeeding in the throne without having to spill any more unnecessary blood. So Benjamin, if all this goes as is, Benjamin will reap the benefits of it. Obviously, we all know that the Moffat families are literally going at it right now at the lower tiers of the Black Whale. So KURAPIKA's rescue scenario is currently happening as we speak, as he's thinking about this. He's also bringing up the idea of the person with the snake attacks in his Nen classes is still out on the loose. But with everything going on right now with Zhang Lei and everything that is going on with the Mafia families, Benjamin, and the Succession Contest, they're on thin ice, and it more or less is a gamble for what he's starting to do, and a delicate balance for everything that's going on within the Succession Contest. We then transition over to Cheadle, one of the Zodiacs, who is taking Prince Halkenburg's body, who was previously vomited and seemed like literally dying, to go through an operation. As we all realized in the last chapter, seemingly after Halkenburg swapped bodies with Balsamilko, we essentially got it confirmed that the virus is in Halkenburg's body now and is killing him. Also, really quick, all the way in the back of this panel, I didn't notice it at first, but it's Leorio. Leorio's back in the series after a long time ago. I think the last time we saw him was 6 or 7 years ago, during the previous batch of chapters before the previous hiatus. So it's been a long time since we've seen Leorio, but no speaking lines, but he's on the operating table, so that's pretty interesting to see. We then see Halkenburg just discussing everything going on with his Nen ability, Halkenburg, and everything that's going on. So this whole chapter gives us a whole big details on Halkenburg's Nen ability, which is just incredibly wordy, so I'll try and simplify it as much as I possibly can as we go through it. But one thing is that the targeted persona, the person whose body is being taken over, that main persona, is asleep while it's being possessed by somebody that is shot through with Halkenburg's arrow. He's also seemingly trying to convince his mother to make his death neglected to be an autopsy, so not to find anything else about the virus and everything, to help make his death stick a bit more and all that. Halkenburg ends up going to Benjamin over the phone, saying that the mission is complete and that they'll know within the next 12 hours once Halkenburg is officially done. And so, yeah, Halkenburg is told by Benjamin in Boss Milko's body to watch over things. And so we end up getting this whole big breakdown over Halkenburg's ability. So I'm gonna try and cliff notes it, because this is a hell of a lot of information for me to read through. So just give me a second as I basically give you guys the quick rundown on it. Okay, so with the previous swap that had occurred a little while ago, it's confirmed that once someone is shot with the arrow, the mind who was shot has priority over the body, and the previous consciousness is essentially in a force of sleep until the body ends up going to sleep. And the way this ability is like we stated, forced mind swap. When one person is chosen, one person out of the group that charges Halkenburg's arrow essentially gets randomly selected as part of the arrow to be swapped into somebody's body. And so, yeah, that makes things pretty interesting. It's like a whole roulette. This includes Halkenburg himself, which is actually a pretty big risk-reward thing. And as it tends to work, the bigger the risk, the higher the reward. Which means that there was like a 1 in, I think, 13 chance of Halkenburg essentially being swapped into Balsamilko's body out of all of his followers in that instance. But he did say that he planned for this. And even then, he was always like, we need to find out what happens when the body dies, when someone else's mind is within it. And so with how it works is that one persona can be awake at a time. And once, like, let's say Halkenburg's body, for example, if that dies, his mind will be, like, put to sleep in Balsamilko's, and Balsamilko's persona will reawaken and take control. And after that, essentially, it'll be more like two personas in one singular body. But to figure things out a bit more on the return to the original body, even after its death, Halkenburg is going to essentially take a drug to put him to sleep within 10 hours so that they could potentially, in a way, find out what happens before his death, because if his mind is asleep before his original body dies, perhaps his persona will still live on within Balsamilko, and maybe Halkenburg can potentially either put his mind back into his body and revive it. That's my whole theory. Or he'll either stay in Balsamilko's body, find a way to make it permanent, or swap into another follower's body and see how that works out. Because there's also the idea that the succession battle might include body and soul being dead. So if Halkenburg's body is dead, but his soul still remains, then he's still technically in the succession contest. And that could also mean that his guardian spirit beast is still around. Now, there's also another thing that is brought upon with his Nen arrow, and that is, it's only for those who are willing to sacrifice their lives wholeheartedly with no conflict whatsoever. Like, if they're feeling conflicted, like, let's say I'm, like, second-guessing everything that's going on right now. I will not be chosen for Halkenburg's arrow to take control of someone's body. Since I'm not putting my life on the line, then the ability won't register me, and thus I won't be one of the people that could potentially be used to take over someone's body. And so this is only for people who are truly into the ideal nation that Halkenburg wants to build. Honor and noble sacrifice. And so, yeah, this is why Halkenburg was also chosen, but this is why all these other characters are chosen. With the high risk, high reward, this is definitely something that is incredibly big for Halkenburg to do. Though I do have to commend Halkenburg, he did plan for the possibility of his soul being swapped, since this was random, because it was like a 1 in 13th chance, but he did plan for this. So I have to commend his multiple chess movements to actually do this. It's actually very interesting to see, and shows the amount of IQ that Halkenburg has now that he's fully utilizing and learning about his Nen ability. But yeah, we get the whole breakdown over 10 hours roughly for control over Balsamilko's body before he takes a sleeping pill, and to see how things can work with the minds coexisting within the same body. And so if everything goes as Halkenburg plans, he might be able to emerge as the victor of the succession contest. And if he's in Balsamilko's body and his original body is dead, he'll get close to Benjamin and potentially take out Benjamin one-on-one. So that'd be pretty interesting. But we then transition to a rarity in HunterxHunter where we see multiple panels and instances with no dialogue, showcasing doctors, military men, going into the room of Halkenburg as we see Halkenburg's body in the operating room. We then cut to Benjamin, Camilla, and Zhangle doing what they're doing in their own rooms as Halkenburg's body is fighting for its life. We then cut to Saragnik as he continues to break Nen record after Nen record. And even he's frustrated with how things are going, but even gives himself a deadline of like maybe 2 weeks, maybe he'll get everything down, but he's craving the challenge, he's craving the power that he'll get. And his bodyguard is kind of like, goddamn, he's making so much progress, much more than the average guy can do, and he's so intense about it, giving himself a deadline that seems on another level, but he knows he can do it. And that's what makes him even scarier. And I pray for this bodyguard, the guy, because apparently Saragnik wants to spar with him afterwards. If Saragnik like doesn't hold back whatsoever, this bodyguard, he's gonna die, like straight out. He's going to get himself killed, unless it's done in like parallel future, in which case he won't die. It's a whole thing, but that's pretty interesting. But we then cut to more pages and panels of no dialogue whatsoever. One is of Saragnik just holding out and trying to focus his aura. And man, does he look incredibly ominous with this look. Saragnik, if he's the final boss, he probably is the final boss of this arc. The build-up for this guy is insane. We get him, some panels with the Beppa, Tyson. We then see Luzarus in his room. We see the Nen Spirit Beats of Kacho looking over the sickly Fugetsu in the sickbay. We see Bisky with her prince and that prince's bodyguards. I forgot that prince's name. Just great to see Bisky again. We then see more of Kurapika and Queen Oito and Prince Wobble as he meets up with Benjamin's other guards, discussing the second round of classes that will begin the next day on Thursday at 9 in the morning. And so it'll be the same format as before, but this time Camilla's guards are going to be entering this time. And the previous 2 guards from Benjamin's camp are still going to be there. And so this is definitely something to be interested about, because Camilla essentially didn't have regard to 10. She wasn't interested in it, especially considering the fact that her guards and even the have-nots are Nen users. So they didn't really need to go to this class, and she found no interest in it. But with how things are going right now, it might be to verify information, to see if there's dirt on her that Kurapika might know, especially with all the rounds of letters that have happened previously with the last chapter. So it's very strong possibility that Camilla is going to try and find information, see if there's anything Kurapika knows about her, any dirt is brought to their attention, and perhaps to try and take out Kurapika and Prince Wobble in an assassination attempt, or what have you. And one of Benjamin's guards essentially brings up this motive as the whatnots are specialized in curse users, which means the person that is sent, the bodyguard that's sent, could be the curse user for Wobble. So that's a whole big thing, and so this could definitely invite full-on just death to Wobble right now. Probably the most danger that Wobble will probably be in is if Camilla's have-nots, the one that curses Wobble, will be there. So that's definitely a whole thing. And even Benjamin's men are just like, there are way too many uncertainties. Oh man, a lot's going on right now. Now, Kurapika says something interesting, because they're probably there because of the letters that they got, like I said, with the information. But Melody's letter didn't have any information on Camilla, meaning that seemingly the judiciary branch did not have information on Camilla yet, or there was nothing for them to dig up on her, and she did a better job of covering her tracks than the rest of the princes, for all we freaking know. Either way, she's so nervous that she's sending bodyguards, so that's a whole lot of stuff to keep into account. And Kurapika has Zhang Lei and the contract right there, so he needs to work very carefully. We then get to see more panels of doctors working on Halkenburg's body, as then the body flatlines, and man, this one panel of the deceased Halkenburg of his body with blood spat up, it's just viscerally horrific. Now, obviously, no persona, no spirit is technically in that body, so no one really suffered. It was just the body's natural functions going at the curse. But yeah, Halkenburg's body is officially declared dead. And so Halkenburg and Bolsonaro body is talking to Benjamin over the death. And so Benjamin essentially does something something interesting that humanizes him. He essentially gives the Halkenburg's bodyguards and followers proceedings over the funeral, access to it, as well as to do whatever they want to their body and say Halkenburg's last words, even though he didn't speak them full-heartedly. So that is interesting. That's a big degree of respect that Benjamin is doing, because he told Bolsonaro in Halkenburg's body that with the funeral, with the handling of Halkenburg's body and everything, to make sure that everything is handled respectfully. and Halkenburg mentally thanks Benjamin for this, showcasing that despite the bloodbath, despite Benjamin going after his own siblings because of the succession contest, he does have a degree of just care and love for his siblings. Because if he didn't have any care or love for his siblings, even the smallest amount, he wouldn't want Halkenburg's funeral, well, the death of Halkenburg as far as he knows, to not be handled with as much respect and freedom with his followers as possible. So that humanizes him. So even though he's doing a whole bunch of, crazy stuff, wanting to enact martial law and all that, the fact that he cares so much for his brother after the death to make this whole thing respectful as possible, and to honor his brother, despite the fact that he basically was the one that put out a hit on his brother, shows a bit of humanization for Benjamin. So that's pretty interesting to see. And in the final page of the chapter, we get the announcement of Halkenburg's tragic death, and the announcement of when his funeral is going to be at the staircase at Tier 1. But it's then that we cut to the Phantom Troupe, the group with Nobunaga, Finks, and Feitan, as they're hearing all this, wondering, wait, is this Prince Halkenburg one of the benefactors of the Mafia? They're like, nah, so we don't got to worry about them. And they go over the transmitter that they placed in the Haley's hideout, and so it'll make things easier to find them. And so we essentially cut back to where the Phantom Troupe section of the story from the previous batch of chapters ended off. This is something that I had to go back and check, because this is where we ended things off with the previous batch of chapters with Nobunaga's group. Because this announcement was happening towards the end of this section. Then we transitioned to Melody and what was going on with her, and then leading into KURAPIKA, which led into this batch of chapters. So we're finally full circle. And the fact that everything going on with the Haley, with the Mafia War, with Hisoka, with the Phantom Troupe, happened seemingly around the exact same time all this stuff in the previous batch of chapters has been going on, is wild. And also, KURAPIKA's worst case scenarios are happening in real time right now. So it's only a matter of time before this delicate balance is fully shattered once it starts to affect the princes and everyone on the higher tiers. So, yeah. But yeah, with all that said and done, we essentially get back to Nobunaga's group, and it seems like we might transition back to the Phantom Troupe for this next couple of chapters. And I am so happy that we're back with the Phantom Troupe. Look, I love everything that's going on with the princes. I love everything that is going on with KURAPIKA, the dealings, the trust, everything that's going on with all the maneuvering and chess plays. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that the stuff with Hisoka and the Phantom Troupe wasn't the favorite stuff I've had in this whole arc thus far. And while these batch of chapters have been great for information building and bringing everything back together, the Phantom Troupe stuff is the part that I love the most. It's probably recency bias with everything that happened with the previous batch of chapters and the backstory to the Phantom Troupe, and you want to see them even more. But either way, there's like a 90% chance that we're going back with the Phantom Troupe with this transitionary sequence right now, tying us back to the previous batch of chapters, showcasing that everything that happened has been on the same timeline with that last batch of chapters and this last batch of chapters, seemingly. So, yeah. Either way, I'm excited to see what happens next, and I'm curious to see if we are going to shift over to the Phantom Troupe, or just another group in this entire multifaceted arc with the Succession War. But what do you guys think of this chapter? How do you feel about everything going on with Halkenburg's death? Do you think that now that his body's dead, once everything goes on with Balsamilko, and once his consciousness leaves that body, will he somehow find a way to subvert it and stay on Balsamilko's body, or resurrect himself in his old body right afterwards? So that we're essentially reviving it with post-mortem Nen. That's something I didn't mention earlier. If it's post-mortem Nen, he could maybe restart his heart like Hisoka did after he died against Krollo at Heaven's Arena. So there's that. There's everything going on with the coins, everything that's going on with delicate balance that's going on right now with the Mafia and the princes and everything. It's something I didn't really mention because I completely forgot to say this, but the catalyst will not just be the Mafia families going to war, but also the death of a prince. And let's not forget, Melody, the Kachos, Nen Spirit Beast, and Kaiser are all planning the assassination of 7th Prince Luzerus, who just so happens to be one of the Mafia benefactors. So if they succeed in their assassination attempt to get rid of Luzerus, the Mafia families, once that is brought to light with the Mafia families, Benjamin's going to enact martial law, and then everything's going to go out the window. So, yeah. A lot is going on with these batch of chapters, and things just so close to hitting the fan and deploying into all-out chaos. So, yeah. Either way, these last batch of chapters have been great, and I'm excited to see what happens next. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below with your thoughts, theories, and speculations. And once more, if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.